Hey, everybody. Victoria here with another episode of the Puff Puff Planet podcast. Today I've got another kind of shortened educational video for you again. I'm just kind of hitting on some questions and, topics that I've been asked about a lot from people in my life, and a lot of it being my staff, especially when we have customers come in kind of like asking specific questions about things. So today I'm going to be touching on CBN versus melatonin. This is super big and important simply because CBN is kind of like taking over, and it has been in our market for about the last year or so. And it's something that when people come in, I would say that one of our biggest chief complaints from our customers and patients is that they're not sleeping, that they're not getting quality sleep, that they haven't been getting quality sleep, that they're really looking for a product that will help them sleep. So it's kind of nice to have a little bit of something in our back pocket when it comes to cannabis, because while there's not a ton of research, so I always want to lead with that, there's very limited research that we're able to pull from, but from what we know from a lot of like personal experiences and what research is out there, there's a lot about this plant that can truly help people. So I've mentioned in some episodes before how there are over 100 cannabinoids found in the cannabis plant. THC being the most well-known, of course, and then CBD kind of secondary to that. Well, CBN is another cannabinoid found in the plant that, while psychoactive, is not necessarily intoxicating. It has been known on with personal kind of like experiences to be like pretty sedating, which is what we want, I guess, when we're looking for a product for sleep. So, I'm sure all of you have someone in your life, or maybe you yourself, take melatonin to help sleep. I have used it in the past kind of with like jet lag or just general like trying to beat some insomnia that I'm having, or knowing that I have a big day ahead of me and that like I'm just not tired. But I really have tried to not take melatonin, and I've tried to like stay away from it a lot in my life, because while I know that there are a lot of doctors that recommend it, I've also heard that there are like long-term kind of more side effects associated with it, and that there isn't really known to be like what effect does melatonin really have on your body in the long term. It's said that, if you take melatonin for a long enough period of time, that your body will stop naturally producing melatonin. So it kind of is like, okay, it's not a permanent fix, and it's kind of just like not causing my body to do what it's supposed to be doing. It's kind of telling my body like, hey, here's the substance, so you don't need to produce it anymore. So in short, melatonin supplements will have a greater direct impact on your sleep, I will say, than CBN would, but there is more kind of risk associated with it than from my research, than what you would get with CBN. So on the other hand, CBN absolutely supports sleep, but I feel like in a little bit more of like an indirect way, kind of to common sleep barriers, which might be like pain or anything kind of associated with that in that kind of way, nausea, things like that. So, we're kind of going to dive in. First, I'm going to touch on like what is CBN. So cannabinol is one of more than 100 cannabinoids, like I said, found in the hemp plant, or just in the cannabis plant in general. So the hemp plant produces primarily CBD, and your cannabis plant, THC primarily. It's like reputed as a sleep aid due to its soothing effects. However, there's a degree of fact and fiction surrounding these claims. So like I said, not a ton of research. Some people I know will take CBN and be like, that knocked me on my butt. And some people I know will take it and actually tell me that it has done a little bit of the opposite effect. So like I've mentioned a million times over, the way cannabinoids interact with your body and your brain neurologically are going to be different from the next person. So while it may be extremely, extremely sedating and great for sleep for one, it might not be so much for the other. I've seen it even be used in applications that aren't just necessarily for sleep, but to kind of attack like pretty heavy anxiety or like panic disorders, because it can actually help just like calm you down in that way, that like in a low enough dose, it doesn't make you so drowsy and sedated that you need to like go to sleep, but it actually can help like calm you. So we carry a product in the store by Zilla's, and it's the first and only like pet tincture that I know about that combines CBD with CBN. And like I always looked at CBN as like, that's really sedating. Like if, I gave CBN to my dog, like he would just sleep all day. But I've actually recommended this to quite a few people after speaking with like the team over at Zilla's and kind of like what their goal and objective was they were saying, we're seeing a lot of people with pets who have like very, very high anxiety. And regular CBD is just not cutting it. So while I was like, okay, if they take this, do they just go to sleep? And not really. I have one of my best friends who gives it to her dog every night, who kind of gets like anxiety right at bedtime. It's one of those things where she's like, I don't understand it, but he just paces the room and he gets really like anxious and kind of like irritated and agitated. So she started giving him the tincture and realized that like it was actually helping more than just like the CBD pet treats that she had been using. So it can actually, in like a small enough dose, I think it was only like a 2 or 3 milligram dose of CBN that the dog was taking, can actually like really help with an additional calming like side effect with CBD. So like I said before, we know THC interacts with our endocannabinoid system in our body and it maintains homeostasis. So CBN does the exact same thing. It's not a keyhole fit like THC, like I've mentioned before, so it will not create those intoxicating effects, but it will still bind and attach to our receptors in a way to turn them off and inhibit that. So each cannabinoid has its own kind of like set of skills. So like what it can do for someone. So you have THC and you have CBD and you have CBG, which we've talked about before, being great for like gut health and a neuroprotectant and all of those kind of things. And then you've got CBN that we're now coining kind of as like our sleep cannabinoid, like a cannabinoid that's like really, really good to help you sleep. So we kind of go into that a little bit and know that, CBN is known to be drowsy and sedating, and while at the same time giving you kind of all the same benefits that CBD gives you. So it's not just like a melatonin whose like pure purpose is to just like sleep. CBN also does like ancillary things. So it also can help you with pain and inflammation and with nausea and all of those things that make, living life a little bit more difficult for some people. So kind of dived out to what is melatonin. So melatonin is a hormone released by the pineal gland in your brain to induce feelings of sleepiness. Melatonin release is stimulated by darkness, and thus this hormone regulates our sleep-wake cycle. So due to sleep disruptions, pain, anxiety, etc., as well as some chronic conditions like insomnia, your body's ability to release melatonin can be impaired. So, melatonin is what we naturally produce, but some people are just not, their body is just not producing it in the way that they need to get that like restful good night's sleep. So they go, okay, your body's not producing it, so we have to give your body some more melatonin. So that's kind of where, I am not against melatonin. Maybe like for myself personally, I just choose not to use it. I have used it, but I know that there's a lot of people that take melatonin and where that really works. And I've seen a lot of like, we even carry some in the shop, like CBD products that contain melatonin. So for me, I know melatonin can be helpful for some people that have like a little bit more chronic like sleep conditions, but I'm finding CBN is what helps you kind of like stay asleep. And I think melatonin helps you get to sleep. And I don't necessarily think that melatonin sometimes carries you through the night. And I've also heard from people who might take too much melatonin and the next day they wake up really drowsy. That's not really like something that I think happens often with CBN if dosed correctly. So you can probably say the same thing about melatonin. Like if you dosed it correctly, you wouldn't be nearly as sleepy. But I think, like I said, CBN can actually help your body like trigger to create melatonin. So instead of like replacing it and telling your body like, you don't need to make this anymore, it's basically saying like, hey, produce more of this because like this is what you need to sleep. So again, more research needs to be done, and it's something that I can't wait for more studies to come out about, but from what I've seen in my store and personally, like it's working for people. CBN is kind of replacing people's melatonin. And I've even seen people use them in conjunction, honestly, for like pretty serious like sleep conditions where they're like, okay, melatonin on its own isn't really cutting it, CBN on its own isn't really cutting it, but when I combine these two in like the right dose, like it's kind of doing exactly what I need it to do. So benefits for sleep with CBN. CBN is a sedative for most people, which is what we want. And we've done a lot of studies on rats, but not a lot of studies on humans. And we found that CBN can actually reduce inflammation, which is one of the chief causes of like poor sleep, I guess. So I was doing some research on like the National Sleep Studies of America and all that kind of stuff, but like pain, anxiety, and pain caused by inflammation. So like your joints or your muscles or whatever, and then your anxiety that you're receiving are like kind of the two biggest things that are the reason why we're not sleeping at night. So if we can, that's why people take like Tylenol PM, because it helps with their inflammation and it also makes them sleepy. So, that's something that we're realizing, like CBN, in the same way that CBD kind of like is an anti-inflammatory, is also kind of one of the main reasons why it's so good for sleep. It's not just the fact that it's like has a sedating, drowsy like side effect, which helps obviously, but it's one of those things that's kind of going to the root cause of your problem, which is like your pain. So melatonin is not addressing your pain. It's not looking at your pain and what's going on in your body. It's just going, we're going to produce melatonin and that's what helps you sleep. So, and another thing too is when you take melatonin, if you're not like I've noticed personally, if I'm not like in my bedroom with the lights off, ready to sleep, like I get a little bit of anxiety from melatonin. So it's something that you have to also prepare yourself for bed to take your melatonin as you lay in bed 30 minutes before you go to bed. And I really encourage that with CBN too. I kind of encourage that. I'm like, if you're just trying to sleep at all, like unplug, turn your TV off, turn your phone off, take your dose of CBN 30 to 45 minutes before you're like anticipating wanting to be in bed, go to bed, turn the lights off, lay down, try to induce like an environment that is conducive to sleep. So I think that's a big piece that I always want to like mention to people, is that like I have a mom who has horrible sleep schedule. She, even if, doesn't matter what she takes, like she could take 1 billion milligrams of melatonin and should definitely be sleeping. She will fight it, right? So she takes it because she can't sleep, but then she fights it all night. So she told me like, well, I'll take it, and the second I start to get tired or my eyes are like dropping, I grab my phone and I start playing a game. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So I'm like, are you trying to sleep or are you trying to like fight your sleep constantly? So someone like her, doesn't really help in those aspects. And I'm like, you need to set yourself up for success. You need to like take the melatonin. I don't care. Take your CBN, whatever you're taking for sleep, and like give yourself the best ability to fall asleep. So go in your room, turn the lights off, turn everything off. Like I used to think that was like the worst advice. And for someone who like struggles with insomnia, but I've realized that like just laying in the dark and giving myself zero distractions, your body just kind of like turns off. So it's like, okay, there's nothing for me to do here. I'm going to just go to sleep. So that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with in a society where we're so plugged in. We're like always watching stuff on our phones or on our TVs. I think it's just really important for us to realize that we need to create like a really good environment for us to sleep in. So that's kind of my first question, is when people come in after like trying a CBN product and they're like, it just didn't do anything for me. I'm like, okay, well, were you trying to sleep? And, a lot of times they're like, well, I can't sleep, so I'm just on my phone and I'm in bed and I'm laying there. And I'm like, okay, well, you're keeping your brain pretty like active and pretty awake. So like, it's going to be really hard to enter, a feeling of wanting to sleep or drift away when your body is being like, your brain is being engaged. So there's been a lot of research done, again, on rats and mice with CBN. But very little on humans. And so I'm excited to see that kind of like grow in the research area. So again, hoping we can get this taken off of being like a Schedule 1 drug, for THC alone. But CBN, is legal per like the 2018 like Farm Bill. So some states still don't allow this like regulated sale of even CBD or like hemp flower. So there are some states where like CBN is not something you can easily access. But it is something that can be created, legally, and you, of course, want to find like a reputable source for CBN. So I'm very particular about who I source all of my CBD and CBN products from. I usually know the person pretty personally for all the products that I source into our store. So, that's something that, with melatonin, it's kind of almost like a safe bet where like you can go to the store and buy melatonin, and that makes you feel good about it because you can find it like any pharmacy or any grocery store that sells like supplements. So you can go to the store and say like, I'm going to take this melatonin. Something like striking that I read when I was doing a lot of research on melatonin was that the actual dose, there was a study between like 2012 and 2017 where they took like a company took all these melatonin products off the shelf and they tested them for like their actual dosage. It varied from like 47% of what they said was in there, like on the low end. So like if they said there was 10 milligrams, there was really only 4.7 milligrams of melatonin, up to 358% like variance. So you could be like taking what you think is a 5 milligram dose of melatonin, and it's really like maybe 1, or really it's maybe like 30. I don't know the actual math around that, but at the end of the day, like there's a lot of research that shows like these companies aren't like accurately dosing these products. And I think it's because there's really not like extremely strict testing standards that say like your product must be within this range, or you have to test a per piece dose. So sometimes you'll find that like you'll take one melatonin brand and it works really well and it knocks you out, or you take one and it's the same dose and it doesn't do anything for you. So that's something to kind of consider, is that, supplements sometimes aren't like as heavily regulated when it comes to dosage. So for us in the cannabis space, like especially if I'm selling a product that is THC and CBN, the testing is like pretty strict because of that obviously because that THC component is there, so they have to test for all these things. So that's why I like, like I've mentioned before, the entourage effect creates the best overall medicinal effect from the plant. So if I'm going to mention, hey, I want you to take CBN, I want you to maybe have a really minor dose of THC in there too. THC can also, aid in the pain and all of those medicinal things that can help you get to sleep. So I think there's a lot of benefits for sleep when it comes to CBN that, again, like I mentioned in the beginning, aren't like direct sleep things, but they're things that directly affect your sleep. And so these things are being addressed. And unlike melatonin, that's just addressing the fact that your body is not creating a certain, item to get you to fall asleep. So, benefits for sleep with melatonin are still there. So there's multiple studies have shown it's been effective at reducing the symptoms of jet lag caused by eastward flights. Other studies have found that melatonin supplements can help people with delayed sleep-wake phase disorder and fall asleep more quickly. So it's actually shown that melatonin has very little effects on people with insomnia. So that's kind of something that's wild to me, that I was like, isn't that the main reason why people would take melatonin? But I take melatonin, like I said, when I'm traveling to kind of like reset my sleep-wake cycle, because I don't have one at the point where I'm in a different time zone. So it's something interesting to me that melatonin in a lot of research doesn't touch the number one thing that I think people are struggling with, which is insomnia. And so it's like, why take it? So from there, is CBN safe? Are there side effects? Is what I get all the time. Again, research is limited. And personal experience varies person to person. So for me, yeah, I would say that CBN is safe. Again, it's protected under that Farm Bill. It's a cannabinoid in the plant that we're very used to smoking and ingesting and enjoying the effects from. So, however, what's the main side effect of CBN? Drowsiness. That's what we want, though. So at the end of the day, I don't think that there are many, many side effects, but there's still a lot of research that needs to be done. So I'm not claiming that this is like a cure-all to your sleep, or that there's literally nothing wrong with CBN that could go wrong. But at the end of the day, in a comparison to melatonin, there are definitely lessened effects. Like melatonin side effects are known to be like headaches or dizziness or nausea, or like drowsiness during like the day following the use of melatonin. So I haven't really found many people experiencing those things. Again, being, feeling sedated or feeling drowsy, the effects that CBN can give you can also unsettle people. So if you've never taken it before, I'm always trying to start people at like an accurate dose. Like, okay, maybe some products I sell are like 1 milligram or 2 milligram of CBN. I wouldn't personally say that that's like enough to really get you to like sleep, but I do think a 5 milligram dose is like a really good place to start. But at the end of the day, a lot of these products that I'm selling also are coupled with, you'll find like most CBN products have at least THC, if not CBD, as well. So it's something that a lot of our products carry like a 1-to-1-to-1 ratio, or, they have CBN in like a minor and a THC in a minor amount, and then actually more CBD. So finding that while CBN has its sedating, drowsy effects, in conjunction with other cannabinoids, it's its best. So like you'll get the best sleep when you can combine it with other cannabinoids. So on its own, it might be able to do the job, but I definitely think that combining it is the way to go. So, I have a lot of products in my store that I carry that are just CBN. So if you can't have the THC component because of whatever reason, there are products that are just CBN and CBD. And I think that those are like the best way to do it, as tinctures or gummies or however that works for you. But I personally, for a long time when I was trying to like get back to a healthy sleep cycle and the sleep rhythm through a lot of anxiety that I was having at a point in my life, I was using the CBN tincture alone. So I was using just CBN and I was taking a small amount of it every night before I went to bed. And it really did help me, whether, whatever the reason might be. I was taking it of course I was smoking a little bit of weed, taking my tincture, going to bed. And I found that was kind of like my perfect like cocktail to help me fall asleep. So without the drowsiness in the morning, without feeling sleepy in the morning, that's something that I really appreciated at that point in my life. And what I like about CBN is I didn't feel dependent on it. Once my sleep cycle got pretty regular and regulated, I stopped the use of CBN on a nightly basis. For some people, that's not, an option, and they're going to continue to use it, and that's fine. But I appreciated the fact that I feel like a lot of people I know who take melatonin and take it regularly can't live without it. Like if they stop taking melatonin, they're not sleeping. So it was nice to be able to rely on it and use it as an aid. And the second that I felt you know what, I'm going to try to wean myself off this and try to get back to sleeping normally and healthily without an aid. It was super easy for me to do. So I didn't feel that it further impacted my long-term ability to sleep naturally. Is CBN legal? Yes, I said that. So, it's protected by the Farm Bill. You can find it online. Probably find it in gas stations. But just really, again, be informed about where you're buying your CBN from. There's so much blogs and Reddit and all these places on the internet that you can go and really get people's testimonials and really get people's input on these and see how widely spread this company is and where is it located and how's it produced and where are they sourcing their products. So for me, that a company that we use a lot is Zilla's, and we also use Earthbound Remedies. So between Zilla's and Earthbound Remedies in our store, we have CBN products for everybody. And Treehouse CBD. So there's and Planet, our very own brand of CBD is Wellness CBD. And we will be dropping our own line of CBN sleep products here soon. So that's something to keep an eye out on. We are very it's super important to me where we're sourcing all of our product from and how it's being made. So I have a hand in the products that are being created for this. So I said, CBN is really important. And I want to see it paired with things. I want to see it in this form, and I want to see it in that form, and I want to see it at this dose and at that dose. So, I'm excited to be able to bring that product to the market too with our team and have that being at all of our locations available for sale, of course. But at the end of the day, all in all, when deciding whether CBN or melatonin is better for you and aid in your sleep, think about what kind of makes sense for your situation. No matter what, if you're going to take CBN and melatonin, especially if you are on other medications, I want you to consult your doctor about it. While your doctor might not be extremely educated or knowledgeable on CBN, I think just acknowledging the fact that you're taking other medications that your body is processing is important. And to, have that conversation with, your doctor, because I am not a doctor, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of doctors that don't have this information. So I want to be able to provide this information to you. Know that CBN is an option. Know that melatonin is not a bad option. It's just not, in my opinion, the long-term option that you're looking for if you're trying to get back to a healthy rhythm of sleep. So it's one of those things that I want you to really kind of look at your situation, go, am I open to taking CBN and trying it? If you're already using melatonin and it's just not cutting it for you, or you are also, worried about the long-term effects of it, or knowing that over time you've built this tolerance to melatonin and now you have to take way more melatonin than you want, or it's expensive, whatever it is, I think giving CBN a shot, whether you pair it with THC or not, is something that I would recommend. So come into any of our shops, ask us about CBN, ask us what products we have with CBN. We're happy to help you with that. We're happy to kind of educate you a little bit on what CBN and what dose for you might work. Again, used for many things that I've seen that aren't just sleep. I've seen it for anxiety and panic attacks and panic disorders, things like that. So, talk to your local bud tender. I mean, any dispensary you go into, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to guess they have a CBN product, at least a CBN product with a THC product. So if you're already taking THC and you're like taking indica gummies to go to bed, my top selling gummy in my store for sleep, hands down, is the wild elderberry gummies that have THC and CBN in them. I sell through more of these gummies than any other one of their kind of like flavors and ratioed like products. So definitely give it a try because I know it's working for people. I know that a lot of these products too not only combine other cannabinoids, but they combined like a terpene blend or like an essential oil blend that's kind of like lavender or something like that, that's also to help like aid in that sleep, to help kind of get you in that same sleep space that, some people use essential oils a lot to help with that as well. So I think that that's something to acknowledge, is that there's a lot of brands and companies like Wild who are really trying hard to create a special blend of like a sleep gummy that really, really is meant to aid you in sleep. So I think, give that a try it out, realize that CBN's there. It's an option. If you're taking melatonin, just research it. Just look into CBN a little bit. But yeah, I wanted to be able to bring a little bit of that information to the table for everybody. I've been asked a lot. People come in the store and they're a little bit skeptical because maybe they've never heard of it, or am I going to wake up from it? I have kids to take care of the next day, and am I going to be sleeping all day the next day? So it's, we most closely will relate it to melatonin, but it's really nothing like melatonin. So at the end of the day, give it a try. Don't give it a try. Whatever it is, now you're a little bit more educated on it. So yeah, we will, see you guys at the next podcast, and hopefully bring you guys a little bit more information then too on something else. Thanks, guys.